Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 13 of 2021 for Real Time Recorded. I'm Zeus Caravallo from ZK Research, and I'm here along with my compadre, Dave Michaels. Dave, happy Easter. It's Easter weekend. So
Happy Passover.
Passover, Easter, all the same thing to me. Are you going an Easter egg hunt later?
No Easter hunts. No. But my Easter tradition is to go chocolate shopping the day after Easter.
Oh, that's a good idea. We're actually in Napa Valley right now, so I'm going wine hunting a little bit later. So that should be fun. So this was Cisco Live Week. It was pretty interesting. Cisco Live. They've consolidated all the Cisco Live. So historically, if you followed the conference, they had an EMEA, they had an Asia Pac, they had a US. They just had one this year, and so they were able to push out a global message, and they had the usual corporate social responsibility updates. There was quite a bit of WebEx news, though, which is,
So it was actually kind of surprising because we just had WebEx 1 just recently, and I thought WebEx Cisco Live would kind of skip over the collaboration group.
Yeah, well, they're making a lot of updates, and they give us analysts an update of things that happen monthly. So I think any forum they have to promote the different updates they have is probably something that they want to do. There were a lot of some of the news. There was a lot of updates actually, in addition to some of the big features. But they had a lot of AI-based features in there. Things that I thought were pretty cool. One of the more basic things they brought in though was WebEx calling. Calling, of course. It's interesting that all these meeting platforms, historically, calling was separate because calling's, harder to do than most people think, right? Good quality calling isn't just, peer-to-peer. And now they have full SIP calling integrated into WebEx that allows you to call both internal and external people. It's done over SIP, and the benefit that has is you can promote from a voice call to a video call pretty, easily. You have access to all the Cisco AI features, including translation, transcription, note taking, things like that. So I thought that was a pretty interesting feature, and one that again is becoming table stakes really for all the meeting vendors. Another interesting feature, which this one I love, is called camera intelligence. And if you believe that we're going back to work at least in a hybrid manner, then we're going to be in those situations again where you'll be the only video participant in a room full of people. And the issue that creates is that you get that bowling alley effect where you really can't tell what people are thinking or body reaction. What camera intelligence does is it focuses on the faces of the people in the room, and it tiles them up above your meeting window. So it actually makes every individual in the room look like a virtual meeting individual. So in some ways it democratizes the meeting. So now I've got face-to-face view of everybody in the meeting. And so that's pretty cool. It uses AI again, so it actually can identify the people, and Cisco's been working on facial for quite a while. So they also had custom layouts, and this has really been a long sought after feature by WebEx power users. I think the way most meeting tools work is you have a handful of predefined layouts, and I find it awkward myself because sometimes if you're presenting to a handful of people, you want to be able to watch certain people, or you'd like to actually have the video window be as big as your content window, and you were really at the mercy of whatever the vendor had for layouts. So now you can drag and drop and move around your windows and make that layout look like anything you want. And they also added a number of AI-based meeting enhancements, and so there's post-meeting tasks, like you can auto-populate the WebEx space with a lot of the post-meeting assets, such as recordings and transcripts. And so the way it works today is you take a transcript or you download the recording, you have to put it in the WebEx room. People would have to, it was all very manual. Now that's all automated. So they've made, to their commitment of making virtual meetings 10x better, they're doing that. And I will say they kind of added a bit to that this time, where they said they want to make the in-person meeting experience 10x better as well.
Yeah, great points, Zeus. You covered this really well in a No Jitter post, and one thing that I want to be sure that people are catching in all of this is how fast and how broad Cisco is operating around WebEx right now. I mean, like you just mentioned, they're doing these monthly updates with the analysts. They are firing on all cylinders. I mean, it's new devices, it's new features, it's across calling, meeting, messaging, it's marketing. I mean, how many marketing alliances have they announced in the past few months? So they're really firing on all cylinders. They weren't they didn't benefit from the pandemic as much as some of their competitors did. They were caught flat-footed, I think, and there's like never again, as far as I can tell. They are doing it so much so quickly. A couple of things you didn't mention. I think the People Insights updates is really interesting. Now, if you recall, People Insights was launched a couple of years ago. It must have been 2019 in Enterprise Connect when Amy was up on during the keynote stage. And People Insights back then was really based on the company technology. It was really based on AI. It was based on largely public social networking type of data to help identify who people are and help identify basically who you're interacting with. They've now supplemented that with the WebEx Graph. Now, we used to hear about the WebEx Graph a couple of years ago, kind of went quiet, but it's basically their interaction engine that's managing who's talking to who, how much people are talking, and it's really putting a lot of this AI intelligence into the analytics that we're seeing in a couple of different platforms. Now, this is a dangerous area because you go from coaching, which is, of course, they're all presented around well-being and employee health, to surveillance. It's a kind of a gray area. And Cisco, I think, has done a really good job. This area is going to develop and is going to get more clear. But right now, Cisco is being really clear. These People Insights, they've got personal insights, so it's designed right now to help the individual employee. They say they're going to introduce team insights and organizational insights, but we'll do that when it's ready, is the impression I'm getting. And so I like the way that the caution they're addressing with People Insights. Another big thing that happened at Cisco Live is they lowered their prices on hardware. The Cisco hardware has always been, key to the way you manage the experience, to the way you manage inclusivity. It's so part of their solution, but it's always been a kind of a premium solution and not available to everybody. And so they've dramatically slashed their prices. So much that they've even had to discontinue some products because, like, the Desk Pro was kind of a high-end product compared to the DX80, which was their mainstream product. But they've now lowered the price so much of the Desk Pro that the DX80 has no reason to exist anymore. And so I think this is great stuff because you look at the Desk Camera, the Desk Pro, the new Desk, which I think is a terrible name, by the way, because it's not a piece of furniture; it's a display, all these what's the Desk Hub, which is the new desktop phone, video phone. These are so important to the Cisco experience. I'm really glad to see these are coming down to better prices. And then one other thing that wasn't part of Cisco Live, but they mentioned it earlier in the month, was this 100 translations. If you recall, they came out with live captioning, then they came out with live captioning to translate into like 10 languages. And just like everything else at Cisco, they decided to 10x it. And so now it's 100 languages. I can't even list 100 languages. I don't even know what 100 languages are, but somehow they've managed to figure out how to do translation on 100 languages. So.
Yeah, the People Insights part of it, the personal insights is interesting, and because it does cross that Big Brother line, but they were pretty clear. I know that when they briefed us, G2 Patel, their SVP, got a lot of questions about what they would do with it and what they were doing. He was very clear that this is for the employee only and not for anybody else's eyes. And I even asked about whether they would extract metadata up and allow people to compare themselves to others, and he said not right now. So they want to make sure that Big Brother isn't watching and people feel comfortable with that. Dave, the next thing I want to talk about is I read this in your newsletter, and by the way, it's the everyone watching this should subscribe to your newsletter because it's an excellent document. The news that came out a couple of weeks ago is that the Wall Street Journal reported that Microsoft is in advanced talks to acquire Discord for over $10 billion. Now, Discord isn't very well known by most corporate users, and I would think a large part of our audience doesn't know it. It is very well known by gamers, though. My kids use it. They tend to really like the product. I've asked them before why they use it, not Skype, and they basically say because it's way better than Skype. And so, from a Microsoft perspective, I don't know what they would do with it. If they do acquire it, I would hope it would stay with the Xbox group. It is a good collaboration tool. The quality is very good. I actually asked one of my kids about it, and what would he would think about Microsoft buying it. And this is quote: Microsoft finds a way to overcomplicate a lot of things in their stuff. I would assume they would implement a ton of goofy Microsoft promotions throughout Discord, which I feel would really ruin and throw off the UI and the flow of it. Like Edge and Xbox and the Microsoft Store, they all uh, stink. I'll use that as a euphemism, in my opinion. So I actually think the acquisition could work. I know when Microsoft bought GitHub, a lot of developers were upset because they thought they would Microsoft up the platform. But to Microsoft's credit, they left it alone. And I think if they were to buy Discord, it would be a good acquisition for them. As long as they leave it alone, they could use some of the capabilities and roll it into their other products. I just wouldn't want to see Microsoft it up, because it is very popular with that gaming community.
Yeah, in the insider report, I generally, I'm pretty strict about what I put in there. And so it had to happen, the one that just came out was the March report. So it had to happen in March to be in that report. And I flagged this in there, and I said that, this didn't really happen. I wouldn't normally include a rumor in the report, but because it's the Wall Street Journal, because it's Microsoft, because it's voice, text, and video, I said, okay, I'm going to make an exception and put this in here, because as you point out, sometimes these rumors are true, and I think it deserves some attention. The obvious question is, why would they do this, right? Because they did it with Skype. They did, Skype was at $8.5 billion. So this is a $10 billion. Of course, Skype was almost 10 years ago. So, who knows what that's like, 50 billion by now. And people look at the Skype and say that Microsoft didn't get their money out of it. Now, certainly Skype isn't the brand that it used to be. It's certainly a lot weaker, and they've yielded a lot to, Messenger and WhatsApp and, Apple and Line and others. But I think they did get a good value out of Skype, because it helped the company on Skype's a free app. Who cares about free apps? It helped, Skype for Business, and now Teams get into the carrier business. I mean, Microsoft didn't have any carrier relationships before Skype, so they were able to, they just announced it. In fact, this month or in March, they just announced at Ignite. They now got 24 countries that they're now offering Teams calling. So I believe that expertise came largely from Skype. It's in, that was a long time ago. And so they've got Metaswitch. They've done other things since then. But I think that Skype started that whole thing. So I think it'd be interesting if they do this. I kind of scratch my head, because they have all the technologies they need. So they really only would be acquiring the coolness of Discord. And that seems like a pretty expensive price tag for coolness. But, consumers in again, thanks to Zoom. Zoom kind of showed the value of consumer and enterprise businesses at the same time. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Microsoft has not been successful with it, other than Xbox. Other things they've tried in the consumer space, all their devices, Windows Mobile, all that stuff's been a disaster for them. So we'll see if they can do anything with this. But like I said, go ahead and buy them if you want, but leave them alone, because you'll chase that community away.
So the third topic for this week's episode is Biden's infrastructure plan, which is, of course, a big thing, which we're not going to talk about completely, but we're going to talk a little bit about the internet stuff, which is, I think, pretty interesting. But just to kind of set the framework a little bit, Joe Biden announced a $2.3 trillion infrastructure proposal. It's got like $620 billion for roads and bridges, and like $165 billion for public transportation, mostly trains and Amtrak stuff. It's got electric car recharging stations. They're going to get rid of all the lead pipes in the water systems. They want to modernize electrical grid after the Texas thing. So all that stuff is pretty cool. There's the non-infrastructure stuff, which is healthcare stuff and some union stuff, which I'm sure will be very controversial. They call it human infrastructure. But the main thing I want to get to is pretty significant plans around high-speed internet. Now, they want every household to have high-speed internet. They want it to be a lot cheaper, and they want it to be a lot faster. They're basically comparing internet to electricity now. And I think about this. I think about my friend Don down in New Mexico. He lives off the grid, and living off the grid always seemed to me like, oh, you could never possibly do that. But he could do it because he has great internet. It's wireless internet, but he's able to, get his entertainment, is able to get his news, he's able to do his work from home, he's able to do all these things. And the internet is just, so critical to almost everybody now, because we use it for everything. So so I like the way that they're thinking about this. Now, I think what's really interesting is that AT&T was the first to respond. I mean, like literally the same day or the day before, and they came out very critical of the whole idea. As far as I can tell, AT&T wants nothing to do with providing high-speed, cost-effective internet. They're not really interested in that one bit at all. They like their copper. They basically say that there's no reason for anybody to have more than 50 or 100 megabit downloads, and which to me just is kind of like mind blowing. And I think that, we talk about a lot of different technologies. We talk about 5G. We talk about, Starlink from SpaceX. We talk about various forms of fixed wireless. But I think fiber is the only thing that's going to work. And to build that out to every home in the U.S. is going to be something like what Biden's calling on the level of the space race or the interstate highway system. I mean, a big government effort. And I think that's actually a pretty legitimate way of looking at it. The questions here are, there's not many people that disagree with the need for more infrastructure in the U.S. Even Trump was campaigning on this 5 years ago, talking about, getting our airports up to stuff and fixing our infrastructure, our roads and bridges. I think what the big debates are going to be is, how we pay for it and how to deliver it. And that's going to take some time to sort out. My home has Twisted Pair and coax going to it. And that's pretty much been the same for, the last, 50 years for most people's homes. And I think those technologies are indeed obsolete. What do you think, Zeus?
This is a soapbox that I've been on for quite a while. When in the early days of the internet, it was John Chambers that said there is no great equalizer in the world than the internet and education. And of course, the first part of that's the internet. And high-speed internet access. In 1934, the FCC established the Universal Service Act that guaranteed everybody phone service to their home. To the life of me, I can't figure out why there is not a broadband equivalent of that. It is something that we need. It's embarrassing. During Jerry Elliott's opening at the Cisco live event, she pointed out that 3 million people in the world still don't have good internet access. And
it's amazing, absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and a big chunk of those are in the U.S. For our country, who's falling behind in STEM, who's doing more and more remote education, to not have good quality internet experience is an embarrassment. And kudos to Biden for doing this, because Trump didn't do it, Obama didn't do it, Clinton didn't do it, and neither did the Bushes. And somebody needs to step up here and get internet access everywhere. Other countries have it. In Canada, they have fiber.
They have it for cheaper. They have it, and they have it for cheaper. We pay more for slow.
Yeah, in Canada, they drop fiber to every school system in the country, and then the community feeds off of that, right? So there's ways to do this, and there's ways to fund it, but it is necessary. And for AT&T saying you don't need more than we need synchronous bandwidth. We're doing more and more video. And people say all the time that they notice poor experiences and stuff like that. So if we are going to be in this prolonged world where we work remotely and we go to hybrid working, people want to be able to move to different parts of the country, things like that. I don't understand why this country is not progressive in that area. And if you look at, like I said, if you look at stats around STEM metrics and stuff, the U.S. is like middle of the pack. We're supposed to be the greatest, most innovative country in the world, and we don't have the basic infrastructure to educate the kids in this country, and we're just going to fall further and further behind. So that's my take on it. And from an AT&T perspective, there's a company that cares more about profits than they do people, and that's,
well, they don't seem to care about profits too much, because they keep on making really bad decisions, DirecTV and all that stuff. But
yeah, but that's something I'd say, like I said, we've badly needed in this country for a long time. So, there's a lot of private companies trying to do something about it, but there still hasn't been our government. This needs to be driven from Biden down.
All right, well, that wraps up week 13 of Real Time Recorded. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back soon with another episode.